Thank you for listening to the Mujeres Create podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mujeres Create podcast. I'm recording from home this time, and I'm so excited to get into these few episodes, the series that I just announced. So, I've been in multicultural media for 22 years. I can't believe it's been 22 years since I got into the space of media, sales, marketing, entertainment. It truly has been an exciting ride for me. When I reflect back on 22 years, first, I can't believe it went by so fast. Second, I just feel so much joy and gratitude that I've been able to enjoy this career for as long as I have. And then, as I look back, now that I'm not in corporate, I can't help but to feel like there's been so many learnings that I definitely want to pass down. And I thought, why not do it in a way that is kind of like a little bit of storytelling, but also sharing some of the wisdom that I've gained from all of those experiences, all the highs and the lows. I definitely see a lot of women, just people in general, going through a lot in the corporate environment. I think since the pandemic, you know, the the corporate space has evolved so much. A lot more stressful situations happening, a lot more layoffs happening, a lot of changes now with AI coming to the forefront and affecting so many roles. I feel like a lot of people are just feeling lost. So if I can in any way help bring some wisdom, some how to anyone who may be seeking it, I want to be able to do that. So I'll start with my first job in media. So in my intro episode, I talked about how I got my first internship at NBC Universal. I was interning for Mundo's Television. And then at the time that I got into Mundos, Telemundo bought out Mundos, and then NBC bought out Telemundo. So I thought I was going into intern for a very small cable network and ended up being a company that was owned by NBC. So right then and there, I just felt very grateful that I had that opportunity. So after the internship program was over, there were 7 interns interning at Mundos. And then since the network had been recently bought out by Telemundo, they opened up a sales division because now advertising was going to be part of the network in a bigger way. They created this role, sales assistant, for Mundo's Television. What a sales assistant does is, when you see commercials on television or when you listen to commercials on the radio or on a digital website or a social media site, there are people behind the scenes scheduling those commercials. And so that's what a sales assistant does. So the job description was for a new sales assistant that would be working for Mundo's Television. And there were 7 interns, one job. And of course, all of us were so excited to apply to this job. All of us were graduating with the exception of one person, my friend Yvonne. She still had one more year to go before graduation. But besides her, 6 of us were graduating, eagerly looking for a job. And what better than to find a job at Mundos? We had all enjoyed an amazing summer interning for Mundos. We did so many cool events and experiences. We were like going to clubs and promoting Mundos to young people. It was really an amazing experience for someone who's in college, someone who doesn't know anything about media, to be immersed in this world. It was mostly girls and one guy. And we all got along very well. We formed a lot of friendships in that internship. There was one girl who stood out the entire program, and she was a very close friend of mine. Is a very close friend of mine. She was a little older than all of us. Definitely more mature, definitely more confident, more assertive, very hardworking, very dedicated, very focused. She stood out against everybody in the program. And when we heard that she was going for the job, we all kind of were like, well, she's probably getting the job for sure. And she did. She got the job. She was offered the role of sales assistant. And I got turned down for the job. And then the unexpected happened, something that no one saw coming. She ended up turning down the job. At the time, she was starting to get into production. She had been interning for another production company too and doing really fun projects that she felt very passionate about. And she felt in her heart that that's the route she wanted to go in. So when she turned down the job, we were all so shocked, so surprised. But then what happened next, I'll never forget. I got called in to the office of the manager, the hiring manager, and he offered me the job. Obviously, I knew that I was a second choice because we had all heard about my friend Maria getting the role. And instead of like being like, I'm not nobody's second choice, I was like, hell yeah, I won this job. Are you kidding me? I get to work at NBC. I get to work at Mundos. I get to have my first job. I get to have a job. I get to make some money. I get to pay my bills. I get to be independent and obviously help out my dad and my sister. I was living with them at the time. I was so excited to be able to have that opportunity. And the fact that I was like the second option didn't even faze me, bother me at all. I just remember being very grateful and feeling very lucky, extremely lucky to be in that situation. And I took the job, and it was the best decision I could have ever made. The first lesson is you go for the job, even when you don't feel like you're ready, even when you feel like there are other candidates that are better suited for the role. If you're in a team environment and you see other people going for it, not like competitive animosity, but just like understanding that you too have an opportunity to go for that. And if it's not your turn, you wait for the next turn, right? But I think the opportunity to at least go for it and give yourself that opportunity to prove to yourself that, listen, I just want to give it a shot. And the one really good thing about that mentality is that in any interview process, you are really just practicing having those conversation skills, the Q&A, learning how to position yourself, how to sell yourself in front of people. So even when you know you're not getting the job, you go for it anyway. The second lesson is don't believe everything you see in a job description. A lot of the times, unfortunately, the job descriptions are written by people that are not in those roles directly, which means that they can misrepresent the jobs, they can misrepresent the opportunity. And I read the job description. We all were like, oh, this sounds really boring. Things like data entry was in there, entry level, assistant, booking. We had no idea what data entry was, what booking systems were. It just really sounded boring. Job descriptions can be very misleading, and definitely now with AI and just people being more on top of it and mindful of the information they're putting out there. I know that job descriptions have gotten very, very good and accurate. You have to kind of see job description, sounds boring, but I really need a job. Let me give it a shot. It may be better than you ever imagined. That was my case. That sales assistant role was far from data entry. There was definitely some data entry, but the opportunity really was more about getting in the door, uh, creating a network for the first time out of college, meeting new people, getting into the industry, getting into NBC, even when it's not your first job, just kind of seeing it through the eyes of wonder and excitement and just opportunity. Just go for it. And don't believe everything you see in the job description because it may or may not be real or true. The third lesson is even when the interview process is messy, you can still get the job. This was my first job out of college. And I remember it was a big deal to interview at a place like NBC. I went to Express and I got myself a suit. And, I didn't have mentors, I didn't have anyone helping me understand what the process was like. I had a really bad resume. I just remember like just being and looking very inexperienced. And at one point, I think I went for like a third interview with HR and I didn't even bring a resume. And the HR lady was like, "You don't have a resume? for an interview. And I'm like, I didn't know this was an interview. I thought I had the job because that's what was communicated to me. And she was like, no, this is still an interview. You need a resume. Who doesn't bring a resume into their interview? I was mortified and I thought for sure, wow, I got the second chance and now I ruined it. But, anyways, it worked out. I got the job. But all this to say is that sometimes we're not the most prepared. Sometimes we don't look perfect. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing and we still get the job. The message is, try not to put too much weight on these individual things, the job description, the interview process, the person who gets the job. Sometimes you just kind of have to surrender everything and you might still get the job. The fourth lesson is, and this is very important, and this is not something I thought about when I was 22, getting that job. This is something that I think about now, and that is define an intention for the job that you want. At that moment in 2004, I was 23 years old. I just needed to make some money. I was graduating college. I definitely didn't have any money. Was going to start paying bills at home. I had a car, I had bills. I just wanted to make some money. And the thought of having a job that would give me weekly pay at a big company, I'm just like, I just need money. I just need a job. It didn't have to be this like big company, this big job, this important role, this like dream role. I just needed a job. I just wanted to get my foot in the door because I knew that after I got my foot in the door, that I was going to do anything under my abilities to do well, to excel, to learn, to grow, to learn any job that I was given. And so my intention at that point was just getting a job. And so when you look at it that way, it doesn't matter if you are entering corporate, entering a new job, or you've been at a job applying for a new one, or you're someone that has a lot of experience and you're feeling a little lost, or you're a senior leader who is ready for a change. If what you need is to have money in the bank, you can say, you know what, for my next job, all I want is to have a steady income. That is the most important thing for me. Or you can say, you know what, the money part is not that important for me right now. I just want an opportunity where I can learn and grow and, feel motivated by the work that I'm doing, feel excited. That's very important too. So it's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about changing and growing and learning. Or you can say, you know what, I just want a better team environment. I want a healthier company environment. I want to go somewhere where I feel seen and heard and appreciated and loved. I want nice teammates. I just want a company that's a little bit more relaxed. You can say that too. And you can say, you know what, I don't care about the money. I don't care about growth. I just care about feeling like I'm in a place that cares about me. And that's also very important. So identifying what are those things that you appreciate most is so important, and outlining that before you put yourself out there. And, when you start applying, when you do that, when you set an intention, you definitely start to see opportunities very differently. And you kind of start to stop putting so much weight on these decisions. And you find that the process becomes a little easier for you. Last but not least, declining a job opportunity is sometimes the right thing to do. The job will go to someone who really appreciates it and wants it versus it going to you, or you may not feel like that's what you want. And so in this case, that what I'm talking about, Mundos, my friend Maria turned down the job because she felt very passionate about production, about doing something that was aligned with her and her desires and her goals. Sometimes we think, wow, I was offered the job, I have to take it. But we don't realize that we are putting ourselves in a situation where we're going to be unhappy, we're going to be unfulfilled, And we're also going to be taking away opportunities from people that may really need it or may really want it. So it's not an easy thing to do to decline a job at NBC Universal. But I gave my friend so much props for doing that, for following her heart. And so the message is if you get the job and you don't want it, it's okay to say no. I hope this episode was helpful. I hope it brings hope to a lot of people who may be looking for a new opportunity. It's just all about putting yourself out there. Even when you don't think that you have the qualifications, you have the experience, you have the schooling, just go for it. You literally have nothing to lose. Click send on that application, click apply, and just see what happens. I hope this has been inspiring to you, and I hope you continue listening on this 10-part series. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mujeres Create podcast. I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the Mujeres Create podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and don't forget to share the wisdom with other mujeres.